So today we're going to talk about workplace safety and competent persons. And I'm going to continue to admit people into the room here. So here we go. We have something a little different today. First of all, we are going to, every month now, we're going to have a little contest at the end of our webinar because it's a little fun, and we're going to give those who are participating an opportunity to win a gift card at the end of our webinar. And at the end of the year, we'll see who and how many people participated and who won the most webinars at the end of the year, and then you get $100 gift card at the end of the year. And so for every webinar we do up until then, you have an opportunity to win a $25 gift card. So there's only a few questions. We'll show the questions ahead of time. And that way you'll have an idea of what those questions are. There will be a slide with those questions. You can print it up at that time if you like. And then we will just go ahead and start our webinar. And then at the end of the webinar, we will go ahead and go through the questions. And whoever gets the answer, I want you to put the answers into the chat box. And the chat box, as soon as the first person gets all the answers in the chat box, you will be the winner. So it gives people an opportunity to really pay attention to what we're saying. And then for us, it's fun for us to be able to have you guys win something. And it's just a fun thing for us to do. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Scott Smith and Jacob Smith. They're not brothers, but they do dress alike, I have to say, always. And they're both safety professionals, and they're going to be presenting Competent Persons webinar today. So here we go.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We're going to go ahead and we're going to share our screen here. All right. Very good. Well, once again, thank you very much. My name is Scott Smith. I'm a consultant here with CalWorks Safety. And from all of the consultants here at CalWorks, we really want to show our appreciation for the clients that we have. It really is a true pleasure to work with each one of you. And to present this webinar today, it really shows the extra value or the added value that our organization provides to you as our dearest clients. We want to provide you with the best and up-to-date information, not only to keep you in compliance, but also to help reduce costs. And we're going to discuss how we're going to do that regarding competent persons training. And as Cindy mentioned, there are going to be 4 questions that we're going to ask at the end of the webinar. And these are the 4 questions that we have prepared for you. So as we go through the material, please focus on some of these questions, and hopefully you get to win a $25 gift card. So the first question is, what is an example of a key responsibility for competent persons? What is one of the requirements for competent persons training? What does BOI stand for? And what is the benefit of competent persons training? So we're going to go ahead and get right into the material. Going into our next slide. So this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. As a safety professional, we see challenges in different clients, and one of the things that I have experienced in my career as a safety professional is that there is a disconnect in some cases with your supervisor. And that disconnect a lot of times has to do with education and an understanding of safety rules and safety policies, and more importantly, some of the safety regulations. One of the things that we wanted to share with you is under Cal OSHA regulations, there is a term that's designated as competent person. And we've listed the safety standard here for you. But what is a competent person? Most companies would call them a supervisor, a lead, something to that effect. Under the law, a competent person means a person who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in their surroundings or working conditions, which are unsanitary, hazardous, dangerous to employees, and who also has the authority to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate those hazards. So, when we think about that definition of a competent person, what comes to mind in terms of uh, what the expectation is for that individual? Many of us, many of our clients, you hire a supervisor maybe because they have good experience. Maybe they worked in the similar industry and you brought them on because you know that their skills and their qualifications exceed your expectations, and you want them to be an effective supervisor, and you think that they're going to do a good job for you. Well, for them to be a competent person, and again, we're specifically discussing as it relates to Cal OSHA safety standards and their responsibility. The individual not only needs to know the operational ins and outs, but they have to know the safety protocols. They have to know the safety policies and procedures. And this is where safety is not a one size fits all. An approach taken where you hire a supervisor and maybe their experience before working for you is good enough. That really isn't the case, and we would encourage you to reconsider that philosophy, because every work environment is different. The supervisor has to have the understanding, the knowledge, and the experience to be a competent person. And that is what we are focusing on in this webinar, because we want to offer all of our clients competent persons training. And fortunately, we have had a couple of our clients that have allowed us to come in and do this. And I have to tell you, it has been, and the results have been amazing. We've worked directly with supervisors. We've conducted the competent persons training, and the results are speaking for themselves. And again, we want to encourage all of our clients that are participating today to really consider allowing us to provide you this valuable service. It really is something that it's very important for the company, and we're going to discuss some reasons why that is. But ultimately, the experience that we've had, it leads to better understanding of safety policies, better enforcement of safety policies, reduction and severity of and frequency of injuries. So again, we're going to encourage you to reach out to us, reach out to our office, reach out to your safety consultant. If you have any questions about any of the details of the competent persons training, we're always available and ready to assist in answering those questions. So going into the next topic is what is part of competent persons training. Okay, here, and we're going to go through some examples. Again, the topics that we're going to discuss and the requirements for competent persons training really are going to be focused on your work environment. Our approach to safety is to make sure that our clients are in compliance. The only way that we can do that is identifying the actual hazards that are present in your particular work environment. So, as an example, let's say you're in construction. Part of the competent persons training could include scaffolding training. The focus is going to be on the construction, the design, the implementation of scaffolding. It's also going to include the specific inspection requirements to identify whether or not the scaffolding materials are assembled correctly, that all of the safety equipment that's needed to erect the scaffolding is there. Also, training for the employees that they are supervising that will be using these scaffolding systems. Another example is fall protection. One of the excuse me, let me go back. Okay, there we go. Fall protection. One of the concerns that I have seen personally is we think of fall protection of somebody like, let's say, a roofer, for example. Well, that's obvious. There's a risk of falling. Okay. But many of our clients that are in manufacturing, as an example, also have fall protection hazards. Maybe you have a cantilever system, a riser, for example. Many of our clients have loading docks. Well, all of these areas require a fall protection policy, and they require the supervisor to understand where those fall protection hazards are in the work environment. Part of that training is going to be the use and inspection of personal fall arrest systems, inspection of guardrails, safety nets, and any other physical barrier that is designed to protect employees from falling. We want to have the training components that the supervisor understands and has full knowledge of the hazards, and that they're constantly monitoring employees that are interacting in those spaces. Confined spaces. This is an example of another area we've seen a time and again where clients really didn't realize they had a confined space, and again, this can be a very dangerous situation. So a confined space, real quick, is an area within your work environment that is typically one way in, one way out. It is an area where the atmosphere can be hazardous. For example, there's a drop in oxygen levels, or that there are other contaminants like CO2 or other things that are in the air that could potentially cause a respiratory issue for your employee. So understanding where your confined space is at, if you have them, and making sure that your supervisor understands the ins and outs of how to operate in that work environment. As an example, if you do have a confined space, you're required to have a permit entry into that confined space. In addition to that, you have to have an emergency response procedure established, and all employees involved in that procedure need to be trained. So as part of the competent persons training, it would be understanding or training the competent person, the supervisor, in those spaces, and making sure that they have the equipment, that we have the correct written procedures, and we have the proper training for all employees involved. Lockout, tagout. This is another area where in the safety world, and in my experience, I'm sure Jake would probably agree with this. This is an area where we see probably the most, you might say, the most tragic types of injuries. Okay. And this is where employees are putting their hands or other body parts in areas of a machine that's operating. We call it the point of operation, and they're injured. And depending on the machine, the injury could be catastrophic. I know in my experience, lockout tagout has been, the failure of implementing a good lockout tagout policy has been the reason of some major citations here in California for some of our clients. And again, in terms of the competent persons training, we would sit down with your supervisor. We would make sure that we would review in detail your lockout tagout policy. And more importantly, we review the procedure that is required for each machine. We identify the energy source, we identify how to control that energy source, and what devices are necessary to keep that machine from turning on while it's being maintained or repaired. And again, the training components of this is to make sure your competent person, your supervisor, understands the ins and outs of this lockout tagout procedure, and that they monitor the process when other employees are implementing the procedure itself. Another common area is the use of forklifts and industrial fork trucks. A lot of our clients have them. There are specific regulations that require safe operation. If you don't already have it, you're required to make sure that every employer that is operating, or excuse me, employee that is operating the forklift, that they are doing daily inspections, that they are trained and certified in how to operate the forklift safely. And again, it's the duty of the competent person to make sure those employees are following those safety rules and that they are receiving updated safety training regarding forklift operations. Another area where we see the need for competent persons training, and I really can't think of a client that we have where this doesn't apply, and that is the use of hand tools and power tools or portable power tools. Maybe it's psychological, but because they're such a small item, they're such a small device and not a real big machine. A lot of times we kind of put this topic on the back burner. But when we look at our clients that are, say, for example, in the food industry, or they're in manufacturing of small components, small hand tools are used routinely, and there are many hazards that can affect employees. For example, as this simple device as a box cutter. One of the major reasons for lacerations with the use of box cutters is not having a sharp razor blade. So, in terms of the competent persons training, we're going to sit down with your supervisor. We're going to go over the use of all hand tools. We're going to look at their design. We're going to look at the manufacturer specifications. If there are safeguards that were required on that tool or that product, we're going to make sure that it's in good condition, and we're going to teach the supervisor on how to inspect those regularly to make sure that they are taken out of service if they're broken, or if there are any other issues regarding safety. If they're electric, as an example, making sure that the cords are in good condition. So again, in terms of competent persons training, these are areas that we sometimes overlook because that we feel that maybe they're a little simple or the topic doesn't really affect us. But these are areas where they can create more frequent injuries because they are used so routinely in the workplace. Another area that is really important to make sure that your supervisors understand their role and responsibility is that of chemical safety. If you are using chemicals, which I would say the majority of our clients are, you're required to have what's called a hazard communications plan. And in that plan, there are specific requirements. As a competent person, as a supervisor, they would need to know what those requirements are. As an example, making sure that all containers are labeled properly. Another thing that they have to know is storage requirements. Where are the chemicals being stored, and are they being stored properly? An example of that would be flammable liquids. If they are flammable in nature, they have to be stored in a fireproof container. And again, just keeping them out in the open or keeping them in a normal closet, for example, would not be in compliance. So not only are we violating potential workplace safety rules and standards, but also we're endangering the employees. So again, in terms of competent persons training, this topic is very important to cover. We go over the list of all of the chemicals that the company has. We look at the safety data sheets and we identify the required personal protective equipment. We also look at the process of how chemicals are being moved, how they're being distributed, if they're being moved from one container to the other. We go through those processes with your supervisor. We make sure that they understand the core responsibility of following those procedures and making sure that those chemicals are used safely. And of course, making sure that our employees stay safe in the work environment. Machine guarding. This is another area, and this really ties very closely to the lockout tagout policy. I have to say that I'm sure you've seen this, Jake, that we have clients that have been in business for many years, and we think that's a remarkable feat because, especially being in California, there are so many things that are going against small businesses. And we have clients where the businesses have come down from generation to generation. And one thing that we see is the machines that are being used a lot of times they're older. And when I mean older, we mean older than 1970. And the reason why that's significant is OSHA didn't exist before 1970. And the machines that you have could possibly not have the appropriate machine guarding. And as a competent person, we want your supervisor to understand that. We want your competent person to understand what are the machine guarding requirements for your machines. If you do have newer machines, that's great. A lot of times they come with appropriate machine guarding. However, sometimes they're deficient. And evaluating your machines, evaluating your safeguards is very important to make sure that your supervisors understand how to properly use those safeguards. And again, making sure that any corrections needed are take place immediately. And again, going back to the lockout tagout procedure, removing those pieces of equipment that are either failing, they're damaged, or the machine guards are not working properly, and removing them out of service. So again, those are just some of the areas of the topics, so to speak, where the supervisor, the competent person, would need to know. Now, again, there are dozens and dozens of other areas where your supervisor would need to have a strong knowledge of those topics. So, in terms of CalWorks safety and the service that we're going to provide for you, and helping understand how valuable this is, it really is something that you should consider. And again, we are going to be here to answer any questions regarding the competent person's training. We do want to reiterate that this is a mandatory requirement from Cal OSHA. As a business, when you hire someone and you give that individual the authority to monitor employees in the workplace, and you give that person the authority to be in charge of, or at least monitor safety in the workplace, it is extremely important that we give them the tools and resources to do that appropriately. And we'll talk about it in a moment, but in the world of Cal OSHA citations, okay, and this is when an injury happens, or for whatever reason, Cal OSHA shows up to your facility, they do a safety inspection, and they identify violations, and then they write you a citation, which is, let's just, in simple terms, it's a speeding ticket, as an example. So they're going to write a citation. And I can tell you that in my experience with dealing with some of the citations over the years, this is one of the areas that the inspectors will issue you a citation almost every single time. And the concept is you own, or you maintain, or you manage a work environment, and you hire a supervisor to be responsible in monitoring your employees. Again, we're not just talking about operational needs, we're talking about safety requirements. That supervisor's supposed to have the knowledge, the working experience to keep their employees safe. When an injury happens, even if you have a solid safety program, it's likely that you're going to get cited for having a poor performing safety plan, and it's because of a lack of supervision or the lack of training and knowledge of a supervisor that led to the injury. Okay, so in terms of CalWorks safety participation in your competent person's training, a couple of the things that we are going to do for you is we're going to sit down with your supervisor. We're going to go over each and every safety policy that you have. We're going to make sure that they understand what I like to call the action items in those safety plans. As an example, the illness and injury prevention plan requires routine and periodic inspections. This is something that we're going to work closely with your supervisor to do. We're going to help them identify any and all safety hazards in your work environment, and we're going to make sure that they truly understand and know what it is they're looking for. Also, we're going to go over any other procedures that you have. So, for example, as we discussed in the lockout tagout policy, there are specific procedures that require the supervisor to monitor employees when they are performing the lockout tag out procedure. And again, this is very important. So again, we're going to go through all of the safety policies. We're going to make sure your supervisor is comfortable with the knowledge and understanding of those policies. We're also going to develop a custom training curriculum that is tailored to your company's needs. Safety is not a one size fits all. This is not something that you can just download off the internet. It has to be site specific. It has to be targeted to the specific requirements specific hazards in your workspace. And working with your supervisor, we're going to do that. We're going to build a customized training curriculum so that your supervisor understands those hazards and how to correct them. The other thing that we're going to do is a one-on-one job site, department by department, or job site specific inspection with the supervisor. We're actually going to take the material, the policies, the curriculum that we build. We're going to take that and put it into practical application on site with the supervisor. We're going to go with them so that we see what they see and we help them identify any potential failures in the safety program or any other issues that might be present that wasn't previously identified. So, as a recap, we want to kind of go over what are some of the key responsibilities of a competent person. Well, just remember, your competent person is your supervisor. It's the person you put in charge of not only your operation, but they are also responsible for implementing and fulfilling the safety requirements of your company. So part of those responsibilities are conducting job site inspections, making sure that they identify hazards and implementing safety corrections. We're going to they are given the authority to provide on-the-spot solutions or corrections to those safety problems. And many times we've had the experience where a worker will come to a supervisor and they have a safety concern. And a lot of times the supervisor's hands are tied because of whatever reason. Maybe it's a lack of resources or whatever. But the ultimate goal is that the supervisor understands what needs to be done to make those corrections and that they're given the authority to do that. And finally, ensuring compliance with the safety regulations and company policies. So we understand that this can be very difficult sometimes, depending on the complexity of your operation. There are a lot of rules out there. But taking the time to conduct this safety training, this competent person's training, truly is invaluable. What are the why is training critical? Well, just real quick, as you can imagine, the legal and financial implications can be very significant. As we all know, the cost of workplace injuries through workers' comp is excessive. We know that when injuries occur, it can disrupt production, and it really just is, it's really bad for business. And having a strong safety program with a competent person that understands their roles and responsibilities is going to help alleviate that concern. Also, fines and penalties. Over the last several years, Cal OSHA has increased the amounts of the penalties associated with citations. And now we are seeing violations up to $70,000 per violation. And I want to point out that when Cal OSHA cites a business at this level of a penalty, they term it as a willful and or a repeat violation. And a willful violation under the law is where a violation took place because the employer either should have known or knew that they were supposed to have a particular safety policy or procedure or other safety control in place, and they failed to do that. And again, it may be your very first citation, but to take an approach that for example, we hear this a lot is, I didn't know that was part of the requirement. Unfortunately, Cal OSHA doesn't see it that way. As a business, you're required to make sure that every known hazard is controlled and every potential hazard is controlled. So if a serious injury occurs, it is likely that you can be cited up to $70,000 for that. Other reasons that we need to have a good, solid safety program and good competent persons training is to alleviate any potential lawsuits and liabilities associated with a lack of safety enforcement from your supervisor. Jacob is going to talk about this in a few moments, but there's something that is changing in the world of enforcement. And Jake's going to discuss this in detail, but one of those areas is going to be possible criminal charges, depending on the situation. And so we want to avoid, of course, anything that is related to that type of liability for you and your company. So again, maintaining a workplace that is safe is not only a moral obligation, but it's a legal and financial imperative. We have to make sure that we keep our employees safe, not just for the employee's sake, but also for the sake of the company. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jacob. He's going to continue with our webinar, and he's going to go right into the topic of employer benefits.
Good morning, everybody. As Scott said, my name is Jacob Smith. I'm going to be picking up here for employer benefits. All right. So having competent person training for your supervisors, you got benefits on a couple levels. You can boost your reputation, but it also can save you a lot of money. So when supervisors are trained to recognize and address these safety hazards, it pretty much demonstrates the company's really strong commitment to safety. So this is it not only shows, to the employees, but also to customers and clients that safety is really a priority to you guys. It also helps build trust and credibility in your industry, positioning the company as a leader in those safety standards. Also, a company with trained supervisors, it's one that's seen as more responsible, which can be a key factor in attracting and retaining talent, clients, and business opportunities. And then, of course, everyone's favorite is cost savings, right? So there's fewer accidents, obviously means that there's going to be less insurance claims, which means that you're going to have less insurance premiums. So with trained supervisors who can actually spot these hazards early and take those corrective actions, the likelihood of accidents really decreases quite significantly. And this leads to fewer claims and ultimately lower insurance costs, like I was saying. So having well-trained supervisors means a lot less downtime. Also, when accidents are minimized and safety procedures are properly followed, work can proceed without disruptions and that come from the injuries and unsafe conditions. So, having people be more consistent, having people be more productive, having less disruptions, this is just more efficient for your operations. And it saves you both time and money, which is, as employers, we're all looking to do. In short, investing in competent persons, training for supervisors, it's not only going to help create a safer environment, but also it's going to deliver strong financial returns through reduced accidents, lower insurance costs, and greater productivity, right? So it's a smart decision that pays off in multiple ways. All right, so now we're going to discuss some of the important updates to Cal OSHA standards and their implications for employers as well as workers, this is some of the stuff that I had actually previously gone over in a previous webinar, but it's really important that this is kind of driven home. All right, so one of the biggest things that I want to make sure that is clear is about this BOI, the Bureau of Investigation. This is what Scott was saying that I'm gonna touch on. And it's becoming the BOI, the Bureau of Investigation, they're becoming a lot more proactive in investigating workplace workplace fatalities and serious injuries. And really, so what does this mean for you guys? And really what it means is that if there is an incident, the BOI, they're not just going to investigate it anymore. They can also refer any egregious safety violations for criminal prosecution. So that's, personal prosecution. And so this is a significant change as it introduces the potential for criminal charges in addition to those civil penalties that we have become used to. Also, the impact on employers can be, really big. If an investigation results in finding negligence or serious violations, it like I was saying, it's not only civil anymore, but it's criminal liability. So employers and supervisors now can personally face some really steep financial penalties, and in severe cases, real jail time. So, in short, this shift increases the stakes for maintaining a safe workplace for employers, right? So now we have a personal stake in this. So as employers, we really need to be aware of these updates because the legal consequences of a violation really could be life-changing, not only for yourself as individual supervisors, but for the operation as well, for the business. So maintaining a compliant and safe environment, it's not just about avoiding accidents. It's about protecting the company and its leadership from any of that financial and legal exposure. All right, so now I kind of want to talk about or get a little bit more in depth of some of those consequences of non-compliance, like we talked about, or like Scott talked about. So first and foremost, we need to consider that the penalties and citations that come from non-compliance, if an inspection reveals that your company is not following standards, you can face those costly fines and penalties, right? So these can be substantial depending on the nature and severity of the violation. But the financial consequences, they don't stop there. It really continues. So beyond those fines, there's non-compliance can lead to serious legal and financial liabilities. You can find yourself dealing with lawsuits, which could really, as I'm sure some of us have seen, can not only be very expensive but also damaging to your company's reputation. So insurance claims that are stemming from violations, they can raise your premiums. They add long-term costs that in the long run it affects your bottom line. So what's even more concerning is that the financial impact of non-compliance extends beyond those immediate fines and penalties, right? So there's a cost of addressing safety violations. You have to take the time and the effort to correct that problem. No matter if that's paying for repairs or compensating, workers that were injured due to inadequate safety measures. All these things they add up over time, and the total financial burden can be staggering as it all starts to build up, and often businesses don't realize just how much they're at risk of losing it all until it's too late. So how do we mitigate some of these risks? One of the most effective strategies that we found is ensuring that your employees are trained by competent persons. I mean, that's just what we keep hammering home today. A competent person, as we've talked about, someone who's really knowledgeable about the safety regulations, but also has the training to recognize those hazards and do something about it. So a competent person or competent person training is really one of the best safeguards for both your workers and your business. It creates a strong foundation for a safe work environment and ensures that safety protocols are not just followed, but understood by everyone in the workplace. So, by ensuring this compliance and empowering these workers, your team, and addressing these safety concerns, in a timely manner, you're not only protecting your workforce at that point, but you're also shielding your company from any legal or financial exposure. All right. So ultimately, investing in competent person training, it's not just about meeting the legal requirements of everything. It's about creating a safer and more, sustainable work environment where, your employees can be better protected. And at your business, they can thrive without, the constant threat of, constantly penalties or getting in some type of trouble where you're going to have some reputational damage. All right. So as we move forward, I want to take a look at some of the emerging safety issues that are becoming a lot more prominent in workplaces here in California. So one of the big ones that we've been noticing a lot here at CalWork Safety is, temporary workers and staffing. So OSHA has really begun to focus on the safety of temporary workers. And they acknowledge that this group often, they face a lot of unique risks, being that they're only there for a short period of time. So temporary workers, a lot of times, because they are there for such a short period of time, they may not, be getting the same level of safety training as the permanent employees. So these new regulations have been put in place that are requiring employers to provide proper orientation and training for these temporary workers, and really making sure that they're trained on everything that they need to know for the work that they're going to be asked to do. So this ensures that they're equipped with the knowledge that they need to work safely, just like their full-time counterparts. If you are using any staffing or temp workers, make sure that you're doing your due diligence to provide this proper instruction and training to keep them safe. We really need to make sure that we're not looking past these employees that are only there for a couple of days. Because you don't want to put in the time and the effort to train them properly because you think it's not going to be a big deal or anything like that. It is a big deal. So we need to make sure that anybody that is going to be temporary or staffed is taken care of. Right. So another emerging issue is coming from mental health. And being that it's California, mental health is a real thing. And there's an increased focus on mental health. And this is particularly in high stress jobs. So we know that work-related stress can contribute to a variety of health problems, and for myself, anxiety, it's always a big one. But for a lot of people, anxiety, depression, burnout, I mean, you name it, there's a lot of things that can come out of high stress, environments. Some of those high stress jobs, it's healthcare, it's emergency services, it's construction. But these people, they're more particularly susceptible to these types of challenges. So employers, we got to make sure that we start prioritizing the mental, health, the mental wellness, and the mental health alongside the physical safety of our employees. It's just so much more important that we're taking care of the mind and the body. So as a result, there's been a big push for better support systems for mental health resources and training to address these issues. And like I said, being that it's California, there's so many resources out there. Everything from free resources to resources on your phone. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of things that are out there. So I always like to say when it comes to mental health, anybody that's struggling, anybody that's having problems, reach out. There's always somebody else out there that's willing to reach back. You just have to keep reaching out if you need to. Okay. So employers who are actively addressing these mental health issues, they're not only benefiting from a healthier workforce, but you really want to make sure that everyone is safer and then ultimately more productive. All right. So this has been another big one that's a long time coming, right? So next, I want to talk about personal protective equipment, and more specifically, personal protective equipment that's designed for women. So this has been a real growing area of focus in the safety industry, and it's gaining a lot more attention as we're moving through 2025. So, historically, for obvious reasons, as it's a male-dominated field, much of the safety gear is designed for men. From the helmets to gloves to even body armor. These were all designed for the male workforce in mind. So this really means that women in a lot of different industries, including construction, manufacturing, even firefighting, were often left with gear that didn't fit properly at all. And properly fitting gear is not going to be effective. So this could lead to a lot of things, discomfort, difficulty moving around properly, and in some cases, some serious safety concerns. So when your PPE doesn't really fit properly, it can hinder your ability to work. It can slow you down. It could put you in positions that are a little bit more dangerous. So, with as this year continues, we're kind of expecting some more significant changes to the standards for properly fitting PPE for women. So these updates they're not only going to ensure that the PPE fits, obviously, but about addressing the broader need for increased testing and research for women's safety gear. All right, so this is especially important, as this gear is designed to fit a woman's body. It's going to enhance comfort and mobility and overall protection for them as well. So it's really important that we ensure that women have access to this gear, that, it provides the same level of safety that we're providing to, the traditional male-focused equipment. So these changes are a critical step, forward in making sure that women are working in high risk, or women that are working in high risk industries can do so, without compromising their safety or their comfort. So like, and a quick example would be like improvements in helmet designs, better fitting work boots, um, some tailored gloves can prevent issues like fatigue, discomfort, and then more importantly, injury. I mean, I don't know if anybody has worked with gloves that are oversized. It makes things 100 times more difficult. Having a pair of gloves that fit you properly, it really does make a huge difference. So when workers are comfortable and properly equipped, they can focus more on doing their job better, being a little bit more on task, and perform with more confidence. So this is honestly this is a pretty major win for women in these types of industries, and it sends a strong message about the importance of inclusivity and worker well-being in general. So ensuring that PPE fits properly, it's like I said, it's not just to protect women, but it also helps create a more positive and supportive work environment in general. You want them to feel like they're part of the group. So it's all about making sure every worker, regardless of gender, has everything that they need, from the tools to do their job safely and effectively. All right. So to finally kind of wrap things up here, I want to go over a couple of key takeaways here, right? So we have the definition of competent person, which I'll go over, the importance of the legal, safety, and financial benefits, and Cal OSHA updates and the emerging issues that I just went over. So for confident person, this training is for, as we talk about, it's for supervisors. That's essential across all industries. It's not just construction or high risk environments. This training really ensures that supervisors have the knowledge and skill to identify proper hazards, assess those risks, and take the necessary actions to prevent accidents. Right. So it's a crucial investment for every company, really, regardless of your industry. And here's a couple of reasons why. First, safety is always a priority, right? Safety first. So in any workplace, whether it's a manufacturing plant, a warehouse, or maybe an office, or doesn't really matter. Safety is always paramount. Supervisors, you guys are, you're the frontline defenders. When it comes to maintaining a safe environment, you guys are the line. And so they are responsible for overseeing their team's activities, and really ensuring that everyone is following those rules. So competent person training, as we've said, it provides supervisors with the expertise to identify risks and take immediate action to prevent those injuries or accidents as soon as possible. And without this training, supervisors they might overlook a lot of this potential or a lot of these potential hazards, which can lead to some serious consequences for the employees and the company together. So secondly, compliance with regulation. We have to comply with these regulations. So every industry is subject to local, state, federal. There's regulations from every direction. And this is, of course, regarding workplace safety. So supervisors with competent person training, they're generally going to be equipped to ensure that the company stays compliant with all of these rules and regulations. And for you, the idea is to avoid those fines, those legal issues, any shutdowns, any slowdowns. And in industries like construction, manufacturing, even office settings, supervisors who are trained properly to identify these concerns help companies stay on the tracks, help stay on the right side of the law. So you need to make sure that this compliance is not just, you don't look at it as just a legal obligation, but it's a responsibility to protect the workforce and the company's reputation in general. All right, and then thirdly, there's increased productivity and efficiency. We're all trying to increase our efficiency and productivity no matter what our business is. And having supervisors who are trained to handle these safety concerns quickly and effectively, hopefully, it means a lot less downtime for the team. We're trying to keep the doors open, trying to keep the wheels turning. So when a workplace is going to be free from a lot of accidents or disruptions, employees can focus on their work. And this, obviously, it's going to increase to more efficiency and productivity. So, so in addition to keeping employees safe, competent person training, it has a direct positive impact on the company's bottom line, right? So finally, promoting a strong safety culture. As employers, we have to have a culture that people can get behind. That's something that we are following as leaders that they have to follow as well. So Supervisors who undergo this training, they become role models for their team. You want to pick good people for your team that are going to be, leaders for them so that they're good role models. Their ability to kind of manage safety, it's not only there to like improve the workplace conditions, but also sets the tone for the entire organization. When supervisors are committed to safety, employees are a lot more likely to kind of follow suit. And a positive safety culture is going to be established because of that, right? So this helps reduce the likelihood of accidents over time, and fosters a work environment where employees feel a lot safer, and valued and protected. So in conclusion, competent person training for supervisors, it's crucial in every industry. It's about protecting workers, staying compliant with regulations. We're trying to reduce costs that are associated with accidents. We're trying to foster a stronger safety culture. And supervisors who are well trained in these safety protocols can help prevent these accidents, increase productivity, ensure that everything is running smoothly. And for companies, this training is an investment. This investment, it's not only to safeguard your workforce from injury, but contributes to that long-term success and growth that we're all looking for. All right, so it looks like this is wrapping up the end of the webinar here. So now we're back to our 4 questions.
Yeah. Stay there.
Yep. Now that we have, you guys have a little bit better idea of competent person and competent person's trainings, what we're going to do here is go ahead. We're going to ask question number 1 in the chat box. If you guys want to answer, I'm going to look for the first person that answers it correctly. So, what is one example of the key responsibilities of the competent person? Does anybody know? Supervisor understanding safety rules.
Yeah, who's that?
Lauren.
Anybody else?
Nobody else yet. Anybody else want to give a guess? Well, I shouldn't say guess, an answer.
Second question.
Okay, we'll just move on to the second one. Lauren, thank you very much. Good job. You did well. What is one requirement of competent person's training? What is one requirement of competent person's training? Making sure policies are in place.
Who answered that?
Heather.
All right.
Good job, Heather. All right, this one should be a quick one. What does BOI stand for? Anybody? Heather? No. Well, I mean, if you invest Igation? She put Bureau of Invest. There we go. Okay. I was hoping it was a typo, Heather. Good job. Bureau of Investigation, correct. And then what is one benefit of competent person's training? It was the last thing I talked about. Anybody? Reduced number of injuries. Good job, Angela. Julia, ensure the safety of your team. Correct. Good job. So we have Lauren, Heather. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. I don't even know how I did that. There we go. Angela and Julia. But Angela got this one first. We got Heather answered 2 questions correctly. So I'd give it to Heather.
Yep.
Heather, you're the winner. Thank you so much, guys, for answering. I really
Okay,
appreciate you
have
sticking
Heather
around.
Leave her email address.
Yeah, Heather, she says, yay. Can we get your email address, Heather, so we can make sure to get that gift card to you properly? Thank you so much, Heather. All right. All right. And just to quickly wrap everything up from today's session, we just want to remind you that, we're here to support you with any of your safety and HR needs. Whether you're dealing with injury investigations, preparing for an OSHA inspection, or really just need any general guidance on HR compliance, our team really has the expertise to make sure that you're completely and fully covered. So our services range from a lot of things, but from safety audits and consultations to risk management and mitigation strategies. So, we understand how critical it is to maintain a safe and compliant workforce. Um, and we're here to assist you at every step and in any way that we can. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us for any questions or support after today's webinar. Right. So you can contact us by phone or email, visit our website for more information on how we can get or help you create a safer and more compliant workforce. So we really appreciate your time today and look forward to working with you soon. All right. That's it.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you, and thank you for your participation. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. And thank you, Heather. Great job. We will see you soon. Take care.